What if I told you that just 10 simple rules could completely change your life? Not rules made by the world, but words spoken over 2,000 years ago by a man whose voice still echoes today. These are not ordinary teachings. They carry power. They carry truth. They carry transformation. And if you truly follow them, your life may never be the same again. This is 10 powerful rules of Jesus. Jesus' first rule is extremely important. Every single person needs to hear this. Because if you truly understand this one rule, it can completely change your life. Jesus said, "Love." But this wasn't ordinary love. This wasn't love only for people who treat you well. This wasn't love limited to family or friends. This was a love with no limits. Jesus said, "Love your enemies." Think about that for a moment. What does the world teach you? If someone hurts you, get even. If someone ignores you, ignore them back. If someone disrespects you, prove them wrong. But Jesus chose a different path. He said, if someone hurts you, bless them. If someone hates you, pray for them. That's not easy. It doesn't feel natural. But that's where the real power is. Because when you answer hate with hate, you become part of the darkness. But when you respond to hate with love, you become the light. And light will always be stronger than darkness. This first rule teaches us something powerful. Love is not just a feeling. Love is a decision. Every single day, in every situation, you have a choice. You can react, or you can respond. You can hold anger, or you can show grace. You can choose hate, or you can choose love. And when you choose love, you are not weak. You are spiritually powerful. Jesus didn't just preach this. He lived it. When he was insulted, he didn't retaliate. When he was betrayed, he didn't hate. When he was hanging on the cross, he said, "Father, forgive them." That is the power of love. Now imagine something. What would happen if you truly lived by this principle? Your home would change. Your relationships would change. Your mindset would change. Because love destroys bitterness. Love calms anxiety. Love crushes ego. And most importantly, love brings you closer to God. Many people say, "I'll love them when they deserve it." But Jesus taught something deeper. Love is not about who deserves it. It's about who needs it. Because every person, no matter how cold they may seem, is fighting battles you cannot see. And sometimes, your love becomes their healing. This rule does not make you weak. It makes you free. Free from anger. Free from revenge. Free from emotional weight. When you forgive, you are not setting them free. You are setting yourself free. Jesus understood the human heart. He knew hatred breaks it, and love restores it. That's why his first rule was simple. Love. Unconditionally. Fearlessly. Endlessly. Maybe right now, there's someone in your life you're struggling to forgive. Maybe someone betrayed you. Maybe someone disrespected you. Maybe someone walked away. And Jesus is saying to you today, let go of the bitterness. Because as long as you hold on to hate, you cannot move forward. Love is not weakness. It is divine strength. And when you live by this rule, you don't just become a better person. You become transformed. Jesus' first rule is this: love everyone. Not just your friends, not just your family, even your enemies. Because when you do that, you stop living like the world. You start living differently. And that difference can change your destiny. So make a decision today. From this moment forward, you will not react. You will love. You will not seek revenge. You will forgive. You will not hold bitterness. You will show grace. Because this first rule of Jesus is not just a teaching, it is a lifestyle. And if you truly follow it, your life will never be the same again. But this is only the beginning. In the next rule, we will discover why forgiveness is one of the most powerful spiritual weapons you have, and how letting go can become your greatest victory. Stay with me, because the next rule goes even deeper. Jesus' second rule is not easy. In fact, for many people, this may be the hardest rule of all, but it is also one of the most powerful. Jesus said, "Forgive, not once, not twice, but again, and again, and again." When Peter asked Jesus, "How many times should I forgive someone? 7 times?" Jesus answered, "Not 7 times, but 77 times." In other words, don't keep count. Because forgiveness is not about numbers, it's about freedom. Let's be honest. Forgiving someone who hurt you is not natural. When someone lies to you, betrays you, disrespects you, or walks away when you needed them most, your heart doesn't want to forgive. Your heart wants justice. Your emotions want revenge. Your pride wants to prove a point. But Jesus shows us a higher way. He teaches that unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. When you hold on to anger, it doesn't hurt them. It destroys you. It steals your peace. It steals your sleep. It steals your joy. And slowly, it hardens your heart. Forgiveness is not saying what they did was okay. Forgiveness is not pretending it didn't hurt. Forgiveness is choosing to release the burden so it no longer controls you. Jesus understood something powerful. A heart filled with bitterness cannot be filled with peace. You cannot move forward while holding on to the past. You cannot step into your future while chained to old pain. Forgiveness breaks the chain. Look at Jesus on the cross, beaten, mocked, nailed to wood. And in that moment of unimaginable pain, he said, "Father, forgive them." Think about that. He forgave while they were still hurting him. That is strength. That is power. That is divine love in action. Many people believe forgiving makes them weak, but the truth is, it takes incredible strength to forgive. Anyone can hold a grudge. Anyone can stay angry. But it takes maturity, faith, and courage to let go. Forgiveness does not change the past, but it changes you. It releases the emotional weight you were never meant to carry. Maybe today you're carrying something heavy, a betrayal, a broken relationship, a harsh word that still echoes in your mind. And every time you remember it, you feel that pain again. Jesus is saying to you right now, let it go. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Forgiveness is not for their benefit. It's for your healing. When you forgive, you close the door to bitterness and open the door to freedom. You stop replaying the hurt. You stop feeding the anger. You stop giving that person power over your emotions. You take your power back. And here's something deeper. When you forgive others, you understand how much you've been forgiven. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. We all fall short. And yet, God forgives us again and again. How can we receive mercy but refuse to give it? Forgiveness keeps your heart soft. It keeps your spirit light. It allows God to work in your life without obstruction. Because unforgiveness builds walls. Forgiveness tears them down. You may not feel ready. You may not feel strong enough. But forgiveness is not about feeling. It's about deciding. It's a choice to trust God with justice, a choice to release control, a choice to believe that your peace is more valuable than your pride. Imagine waking up tomorrow without resentment in your heart. Imagine seeing that person's name and feeling nothing but calm. Imagine no longer being triggered by the memory of what happened. That is what forgiveness does. It sets you free. Jesus' second rule is this: forgive, no matter how many times, because forgiveness is not weakness, it is spiritual authority. It says, I refuse to let this pain define me. It says, I choose growth over grudges. It says, I trust God more than my anger. Today, you have a choice. You can hold on to the wound, or you can release it. You can replay the offense, or you can rewrite your future. Jesus is inviting you into freedom. And freedom begins with forgiveness. But this journey doesn't stop here. In the next rule, we're going to discover why faith, even the size of a mustard seed, has the power to move mountains in your life. Stay with me, because the next rule will challenge how you see your struggles and unlock a new level of trust in God. Jesus' third rule is simple, but life-changing. Have faith. Not when everything is going well. Not when the answers are clear. Not when the path is easy. Have faith, even when you can't see, because anyone can believe when the miracle has already happened. But real faith begins when nothing makes sense. Jesus said, if you have faith, even as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move, and it will move. Think about that. He didn't say you need massive faith. He didn't say you need perfect faith. He said, even small faith is enough. Because it's not about the size of your faith. It's about the size of your God. So many people lose hope because they can't see results immediately. They pray once, nothing changes. They try once, they fail. They trust once, they get disappointed. And they say, maybe this just isn't for me. But faith doesn't operate by sight. Faith operates by trust. Faith says, I don't see it yet, but I believe it's coming. Faith says, I don't understand this season, but I trust the process. Faith says, even in the storm, God is still in control. Look at the moment when Jesus' disciples were in a boat in the middle of a storm. The waves were crashing. The wind was screaming. Fear was everywhere, and Jesus was sleeping. To them, it looked like chaos. To him, it was under control. Sometimes in your life, it feels like God is silent. It feels like nothing is moving. It feels like your prayers are hitting the ceiling. But just because God is silent does not mean He is absent. Faith means trusting even when heaven feels quiet. Maybe right now, you're facing a mountain, a financial struggle, a health issue, a broken dream, a door that refuses to open. And you've been asking, why isn't this changing? Jesus' third rule reminds you, mountains don't move because you panic. Mountains move because you believe. Faith is not denying reality. Faith is declaring that reality does not have the final word. When Peter stepped out of the boat and walked on water toward Jesus, he did something impossible. But the moment he focused on the wind, he began to sink. The lesson is powerful. You sink when you focus on the storm. You rise when you focus on Jesus. Faith shifts your focus from fear to trust, from doubt to possibility, from limitation to breakthrough. The world says, believe it when you see it. Jesus says, believe it, and then you will see it. That's a different mindset. That's kingdom thinking. Faith is waking up before the breakthrough and still thanking God. Faith is preparing for opportunities you don't see yet. Faith is working hard while trusting God for results you can't control. And here's the truth. Your faith will be tested. There will be delays. There will be disappointments. There will be moments when quitting feels easier than trusting. But every test is strengthening your belief, because faith grows in pressure. Gold is refined in fire. Muscles grow under resistance, and faith becomes powerful when it survives difficulty. You don't need perfect faith. You just need willing faith. Even if all you can say today is, "God, I'm trying to trust you," that's enough. Even if your voice shakes, even if your heart doubts, even if you don't see the full picture, keep believing. Because what you don't see doesn't mean it's not working. Seeds grow underground before they break the surface. Faith works the same way. God may be preparing something behind the scenes, aligning people, opening unseen doors, protecting you from what you don't even know. And one day, what felt like delay will reveal itself as preparation. Jesus' third rule is this: have faith even when you can't see. Trust beyond logic. Believe beyond emotion. Stand firm beyond fear. Because your breakthrough is often on the other side of one more moment of belief. Today, choose faith. Not because everything is clear, not because everything is easy, but because you trust the one who holds your future. Faith turns fear into courage. Faith turns obstacles into stepping stones. Faith turns impossibilities into testimonies. And when you walk by faith, you don't just survive storms, you overcome them. But we're not done yet. In the next rule, we're going to discover why humility is the key to true greatness, and how lowering yourself can actually elevate your life. Stay with me, because the next rule will challenge your ego and strengthen your character. Jesus' fourth rule goes against everything the world teaches. The world says, promote yourself, prove yourself, protect your image, be number one. But Jesus said something radically different. He said, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. Think about that. Greatness through humility, power through serving, elevation through lowering yourself. This is not the mindset of the world. This is the mindset of the kingdom. Pride tells you to compete. Humility teaches you to complete. Pride says, I'm better than them. Humility says, I'm grateful to grow. Pride demands recognition. Humility works in silence. And here's the truth. Pride feels strong in the moment, but it weakens you over time. Because pride isolates. It builds invisible walls between you and others. It makes you defensive. It makes you easily offended. It makes you unable to learn. But humility keeps your heart teachable. And a teachable heart is a growing heart. Look at Jesus. He had all power, all authority, all glory. Yet he washed the feet of his disciples, the Creator, washing the feet of creation. If anyone had the right to demand honor, it was him. But instead, he demonstrated service. That's real strength. Anyone can dominate, but it takes character to serve. The world confuses loudness with leadership, but Jesus showed that true leadership is built on humility. When you are humble, you don't need to prove yourself to everyone. You are secure. When you are humble, you don't feel threatened by someone else's success. You celebrate it. When you are humble, you don't crumble under correction. You grow from it. Pride says, I already know. Humility says, teach me. Pride says, I deserve this. Humility says, I'm thankful for this. And here's something powerful. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Think about that. Grace flows toward humility. Favor flows toward humility. Growth flows toward humility. Maybe right now, you're frustrated because things aren't moving. Maybe doors feel closed. Maybe opportunities feel blocked. Sometimes the breakthrough isn't in pushing harder. Sometimes it's in lowering yourself. Humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less. It means understanding that your value doesn't come from applause. It comes from purpose. Jesus never chased attention. He chased obedience. And because of that, his impact changed the world. Pride is loud. Humility is powerful. Pride seeks validation. Humility seeks transformation. And here's the deeper truth. Pride often hides insecurity. When someone constantly needs to prove themselves, it's usually because they're afraid they're not enough. But humility is confidence under control. It says, I know who I am. I don't need to compete. I don't need to compare. Comparison steals joy. Humility restores it. You don't need to be the loudest voice in the room to be the strongest presence. Sometimes, the strongest person is the one who listens. Sometimes, the greatest leader is the one who serves. Jesus' fourth rule is this: choose humility over pride. Because pride may lift you quickly, but humility sustains you long-term. Pride may attract attention, but humility attracts respect. Pride may build image, but humility builds character. And character is what carries you when talent alone is not enough. Imagine what would change in your life if you chose humility daily. In your relationships, less conflict. In your career, more growth. In your faith, deeper connection. Humility allows you to admit mistakes. And admitting mistakes is not weakness. It's maturity. The strongest people are not those who pretend to be perfect. They are the ones who are willing to improve. Jesus lowered himself to lift others, and when you do the same, you reflect his heart. So today, make a decision. Let go of ego. Let go of the need to always be right. Let go of the pressure to impress everyone. Instead, choose service. Choose growth. Choose humility. Because true greatness is not measured by how many people serve you, but by how many people you serve. And when you humble yourself, God has a way of lifting you at the right time. Not forced elevation, not temporary fame, but lasting honor. This is Rule 4. Humility unlocks greatness. But we're going even deeper next. In the next rule, we're going to uncover why trusting God's timing can protect you from frustration and position you for something far greater than you imagined. Stay with me, because the next rule will challenge your patience and strengthen your trust. Jesus' fifth rule challenges one of the hardest things for any human being: patience. Because we live in a world that wants everything now. Instant success, instant answers, instant results, instant miracles. But Jesus teaches something different. He teaches, trust God's timing, not your timing, not the world's timing, God's timing. And that is not easy, because waiting feels uncomfortable. When doors don't open quickly, when prayers aren't answered immediately, when opportunities seem delayed, we start questioning, why is this taking so long? Did I miss my chance? Is God even listening? But delay does not mean denial. Silence does not mean absence. And waiting does not mean weakness. Jesus understood timing in a way we often don't. There were moments when people begged him to act immediately. When Lazarus was sick, they called for Jesus. But he didn't rush. He waited. To everyone else, it looked too late. But to Jesus, it was right on time. Because what looks like a delay to you may be divine preparation behind the scenes. God sees what you cannot see. He sees the conversations happening without you. He sees the protection you don't realize you need. He sees the growth you still must go through. If you received everything you asked for immediately, you might not be ready to handle it. Timing protects you. Timing matures you. Timing positions you. Think about a seed. When it's planted underground, nothing seems to be happening. No visible progress, no public evidence, no applause. But underground, roots are forming, strength is developing, foundations are being built. And if you dig it up too soon, you destroy the process. Some of you are in a root season. It feels slow. It feels hidden. It feels unnoticed. But God is building something deeper, so that when the growth comes, it will be sustainable. We want elevation. God wants preparation. We want speed. God wants strength. Jesus never rushed his mission. For 30 years, he lived quietly before stepping into public ministry. 30 years of preparation for 3 years of impact. That tells you something powerful. The preparation season is often longer than the performance season. If you can't handle waiting, you won't be able to handle responsibility. Trusting God's timing means surrendering control. And control is something we struggle to release. We want to plan every detail, predict every outcome, guarantee every result. But faith says, God, I trust you more than I trust my clock. Sometimes the very thing you're asking for would become a burden if it arrived too early. A relationship too soon. Success without character. Money without discipline. Influence without wisdom. Timing is mercy. If something hasn't happened yet, maybe it's because God is protecting you from something you can't see. Or maybe He's shaping you into the person who can sustain the blessing. Waiting seasons reveal your heart. Do you trust only when it's easy? Or do you trust when it's uncertain? Anyone can praise during promotion. But can you stay faithful during preparation? Jesus' 5th rule is this: trust God's timing. Even when it stretches you, even when it tests you, even when it humbles you. Because what God builds slowly, He builds strongly. Rushed foundations crack. Divine foundations last. Maybe right now you feel behind in life. Others seem ahead. Others seem successful. Others seem blessed. But comparison will steal your peace. Your timeline is not their timeline. Your calling is not their calling. God writes different stories for different people. Just because someone else is blooming doesn't mean you are buried. You may be planted. And planted things grow. At the right time. At the right place. In the right way. Trusting timing doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing your part while trusting God with the results. Work hard. Stay consistent. Stay faithful. But release the pressure of trying to force outcomes, because forced doors often lead to forced lessons, and forced lessons are painful. God-opened doors bring peace, even if they take longer. Remember this: if it's truly meant for you, you don't have to chase it anxiously. You prepare for it patiently. Jesus never panicked about timing. He moved when the Father said move. He waited when the Father said wait. And because of that, His mission unfolded perfectly. What if your delay is actually alignment? What if your waiting is positioning? What if the silence is preparation? Trust doesn't mean understanding everything. It means believing that God understands everything. So today, breathe. Release the frustration. Release the fear of being left behind. Release the anxiety of when. Because what is meant for you will not miss you when you are walking in obedience. Jesus' 5th rule reminds you, you are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are in process. And process produces power. But we're not finished yet. In the next rule, we're going to uncover why judging others blocks your own growth, and how choosing grace can unlock deeper peace in your life. Stay with me, because the next rule will challenge how you see people and transform how you see yourself. Jesus' 6th rule is direct, clear, uncomfortable. He said, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged." In a world where everyone has an opinion, where social media turns people into critics, where we analyze, compare, and comment constantly, this rule hits hard. Because judging others feels easy. We judge how they look, We judge how they speak. We judge their mistakes. We judge their past. Sometimes we judge people without even knowing their story. But Jesus challenges that mindset. He says, "Why do you look at the speck in someone else's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own?" That's powerful. Before pointing at someone else's flaws, look at your own heart. Because the truth is, judgment often hides pride. When we judge, we place ourselves above someone else. We silently say, "I would never do that. I'm better than that. They should know better." But humility reminds us we all fall short. We all have weaknesses. We all have moments we regret. We all have chapters we hope nobody reads out loud. Judging others may make you feel superior for a moment, but it doesn't make you stronger. In fact, it blocks your growth. Because when you focus on other people's flaws, you stop working on your own. Jesus didn't ignore sin, but he approached people with compassion. When others wanted to stone the woman caught in sin, he didn't shout condemnation. He said, "Let the one without sin cast the first stone." One by one, they dropped their stones, because deep down, they knew they weren't perfect either. Judgment throws stones. Grace drops them. And here's something deeper. You never truly know what someone is carrying. That person who seems rude might be fighting a silent battle. That person who failed might be trying again quietly. That person who hurt you might be hurting themselves. When you judge, you react from assumption. When you show grace, you respond with understanding. Jesus' sixth rule is not about becoming passive. It's about becoming aware. Aware that you too need mercy. Aware that growth takes time. Aware that transformation is a process. You cannot demand perfection from others while expecting patience for yourself. And here's the truth. The measure you use on others will eventually be used on you. If you measure with harshness, harshness returns. If you measure with grace, grace flows back. Judgment creates division. Grace creates connection. Ask yourself this: do you want to be known as someone who criticizes or someone who uplifts? Anyone can point out a problem, but it takes character to become part of the solution. Instead of judging someone's failure, encourage their comeback. Instead of highlighting their weakness, pray for their strength. Instead of exposing their flaws, reflect on your own growth. Because spiritual maturity isn't proven by how well you analyze others. It's proven by how deeply you examine yourself. Judgment hardens the heart. Grace softens it. And a soft heart is a heart God can use. Maybe there's someone you've already labeled. Selfish, lazy, untrustworthy, hopeless. But what if God isn't finished with them yet? What if you're judging a chapter while God is still writing the story? Remember, you are not the final authority. God is, and the same mercy you hope God gives you. He calls you to extend to others. This rule doesn't mean ignoring wisdom. It means removing arrogance. It means choosing compassion over condemnation. It means saying, "I may not understand everything, but I choose grace." Imagine how your relationships would change if you replaced judgment with empathy. Imagine how your mind would feel if you stopped analyzing everyone's mistakes. Imagine how much lighter your heart would be if you dropped the stones you've been carrying. Jesus' sixth rule is this: do not judge. Because when you judge less, you grow more. When you criticize less, you reflect more. When you condemn less, you love more. And love is always stronger than criticism. Today, make a decision. Before speaking about someone, pause. Before assuming, reflect. Before condemning, remember your own journey. Because the grace you give creates the atmosphere you live in. And a life filled with grace is a life filled with peace. But we're going deeper in the next rule. In the next teaching, we'll uncover why serving others is one of the fastest ways to unlock purpose and fulfillment in your life. Stay with me, because the next rule will shift your focus from yourself to something far greater. Jesus' seventh rule changes the way we see success, because the world says, climb higher, get ahead, put yourself first. But Jesus said something radically different. He said, "The greatest among you will be your servant." Let that sink in. Greatness is not about how many people serve you. It's about how many people you serve. This rule flips the entire system. We live in a culture obsessed with status, followers, titles, recognition, applause. But Jesus never chased popularity. He chased purpose. And his purpose was service. He healed the sick. He fed the hungry. He touched the rejected. He listened to the overlooked. He didn't ask, "What can I gain?" He asked, "Who can I lift?" That is the heart of service. Serving others is not weakness. It is leadership in its purest form. Because true leaders don't dominate people. They develop people. When you serve, you step into something powerful. You shift from selfish ambition to meaningful impact. And here's the truth. Serving others unlocks fulfillment that money alone cannot give. You can achieve success and still feel empty. You can gain attention and still feel unseen. But when you help someone, when you encourage someone, when you give without expecting return, something shifts inside you. Purpose awakens. There is a deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you made someone's life lighter. Jesus washed the feet of his disciples. In that culture, foot washing was a servant's job. Yet the Son of God knelt down. Why? Because service humbles you, and humility prepares you for greater responsibility. If you cannot serve in small ways, you are not ready to lead in big ways. Service shapes your character. It removes entitlement. It removes arrogance. It removes the constant need to be first. And here's something powerful. When you focus on serving others, your own worries begin to shrink. Because your attention shifts outward. Instead of constantly asking, "What about me?" you begin asking, "How can I help?" And in helping others rise, you rise too. Not always publicly, not always immediately, but internally, spiritually, deeply. Serving doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's listening when someone needs to talk. Sometimes it's forgiving when someone expects rejection. Sometimes it's giving when nobody sees. And that's where purity matters. Jesus didn't serve for applause. He served out of love. If you only serve when cameras are watching, it's performance. But if you serve when no one notices, it's transformation. Pure service changes you. It builds compassion. It builds patience. It builds strength. Because serving people is not always easy. People can be difficult. People can misunderstand you. People may not always say, "Thank you." But service is not about their reaction. It's about your obedience. And here's the deeper truth. Serving aligns you with the heart of God. God is a giver. He gives life. He gives grace. He gives mercy. When you serve, you reflect Him. Maybe you've been chasing purpose. Maybe you've been asking, "What is my calling?" Start by serving. Purpose often reveals itself through service. You don't have to wait for a big platform. Start where you are, in your family, in your workplace, in your community. Serve with integrity. Serve with kindness. Serve without keeping score. Because every act of service plants a seed, and seeds grow. You may not see immediate results, but impact multiplies over time. Jesus' seventh rule is this: serve others with a pure heart, not for attention, not for validation, but because love moves you, because compassion compels you, because purpose drives you. When you live to serve, you stop living small. You stop living only for yourself. And your life begins to carry weight, eternal weight. Imagine being remembered not for what you owned, but for who you lifted. Not for what you achieved, but for who you helped become better. That's greatness. That's legacy. That's impact. Today, choose service. Choose to be the reason someone doesn't give up. Choose to be the encouragement someone desperately needs. Choose to be the light in someone's dark moment. Because when you serve others, you step into divine alignment. And alignment leads to fulfillment. But we're not done yet. In the next rule, we're going to discover why prayer is not just a religious act, but a powerful connection that can transform your mindset and your future. Stay with me, because the next rule will unlock a deeper spiritual strength inside you. Jesus' 8th rule is quiet, but incredibly powerful. He said, "When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." Think about that. In a world that loves public display, public success, public validation, Jesus teaches private connection. He shifts the focus from performance to relationship. Prayer is not about impressing people. It's about connecting with God. It's not about long speeches. It's about honest conversation. Many people only pray when something goes wrong, when crisis hits, when fear rises, when answers seem impossible. But Jesus shows that prayer is not an emergency button. It's daily alignment. Prayer is where strength is built before the battle begins. It's where clarity comes before decisions are made. It's where peace is formed before chaos appears. When you pray in secret, you build spiritual depth. And depth sustains you when pressure increases. The strongest trees have the deepest roots. And prayer builds roots, private roots, invisible strength, unseen foundation. Nobody may see your prayer life. Nobody may hear your whispered words, but heaven does. And what is built in secret shows up in public. Jesus often withdrew from crowds to pray alone, before major decisions, before miracles, before challenges. If the Son of God needed prayer, how much more do we? Prayer shifts your perspective. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond wisely. Instead of panicking, you pause. Instead of controlling everything, you surrender. Prayer reminds you that you are not alone, that your struggle is seen, that your tears are counted, that your future is held. Maybe you've been trying to solve everything by yourself, carrying stress, carrying pressure, carrying anxiety. Jesus' 8th rule invites you to release that weight. When you pray, you transfer the burden. You say, "God, this is bigger than me. I trust you with it." And something powerful happens. Your circumstances may not change instantly, but your heart does. Peace replaces fear. Clarity replaces confusion. Strength replaces weakness. Prayer is not weakness. It is spiritual authority. It is choosing faith over frustration. It is choosing trust over tension. And here's something deeper. Private prayer protects you from pride. Because when nobody sees your spiritual discipline, you cannot boast about it. It keeps your relationship with God real, not performative, not dramatic, but authentic. In secret prayer, you can be honest. You can admit doubt. You can confess fear. You can ask bold questions. And God meets you there, not with condemnation, but with guidance. Sometimes the breakthrough you're waiting for is not in a new opportunity. It's in a deeper prayer life. Because when you align your heart, your direction changes. Doors open differently. Opportunities look clearer. Distractions lose power. Prayer sharpens your spiritual vision. And here's the truth. What you fight privately determines how you stand publicly. If you pray privately, you stand confidently. If you neglect prayer, pressure overwhelms you. Jesus' 8th rule is this: pray in secret. Build your connection quietly. Strengthen your faith privately. Trust that God sees. Trust that God hears. Trust that God responds in His perfect way. You don't need a stage to be powerful. You need a relationship. You don't need applause to be effective. You need alignment. And alignment happens in prayer. Imagine starting your day with quiet surrender. Before checking your phone, before checking notifications, before facing demands, just you and God. That changes everything. Because peace in the morning becomes strength in the afternoon, clarity in prayer becomes confidence in action. So today, close the door. Silence the noise. Speak honestly. Listen carefully. And trust deeply. Because what you build in secret will carry you in public. But we're going even deeper next. In the next rule, we'll uncover why seeking truth, even when it challenges you, is the key to real spiritual growth and unshakable confidence. Stay with me. Because the next rule will challenge your comfort zone and strengthen your foundation. Jesus' 9th rule is not comfortable. It doesn't flatter your ego. It doesn't protect your pride. It doesn't always agree with your feelings. But it sets you free. Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Not opinions, not trends, not emotions. Truth. And in a world full of noise, truth can feel rare. We live in a time where everyone has a version of their truth. But Jesus didn't say, "Find what feels good." He said, "Know the truth." Because feelings change, culture changes, trends change, but truth remains. Seeking truth requires courage, because sometimes truth exposes you. It reveals your weaknesses. It confronts your habits. It challenges your comfort zone. And most people avoid that. Why? Because truth demands growth. It's easier to blame others than to examine yourself. It's easier to justify mistakes than to correct them. It's easier to stay comfortable than to transform. But comfort never produces freedom. Truth does. Imagine living your entire life avoiding hard truths. You might feel safe temporarily, but you'll stay stuck permanently. Jesus' teaching wasn't always easy to hear. He confronted hypocrisy. He challenged pride. He corrected wrong thinking, not to shame people, but to free them. Truth is not meant to crush you. It's meant to correct you. Because correction leads to direction, and direction determines destiny. Maybe there's an area in your life where you already know the truth, a habit that needs to change, a mindset that limits you, a relationship that pulls you away from growth. But instead of facing it, you ignore it. You distract yourself. You justify it. Jesus' 9th rule invites you to be honest, brutally honest, with yourself. Because freedom begins where denial ends. Truth shines light into dark places. And light may feel uncomfortable at first, but it heals. Think about a doctor. If something is wrong inside your body, you want the truth, even if it's difficult. Because without diagnosis, there is no healing. Spiritual growth works the same way. You cannot fix what you refuse to acknowledge. Seeking truth means opening your heart to correction. It means being teachable. It means saying, "God, show me what I need to see, even if it challenges me." That takes humility. It takes strength. It takes maturity. But here's the reward: freedom. When you stop pretending, you start progressing. When you stop hiding, you start healing. When you stop resisting truth, you start rising. Truth removes chains, chains of fear, chains of insecurity, chains of false identity. Sometimes the biggest prison is not around you. It's within you. Wrong beliefs, negative self-talk, Lies you've accepted about yourself. You're not enough. You'll never change. You'll always fail. Those are lies, and truth destroys lies. Truth reminds you that you are created with purpose, that your past does not define you, that growth is possible, that transformation is real, but you must seek it. Truth does not force itself. You pursue it. You hunger for it. You choose it. Jesus didn't just speak truth. He said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." That means truth is not just information. It's relationship. It's alignment with God's heart. And when you align with truth, clarity replaces confusion. Confidence replaces insecurity. Direction replaces wandering. Jesus' 9th rule is this: seek truth, even when it challenges you. Don't run from correction. Don't resist growth. Don't silence conviction. Because every time you choose truth, you step closer to freedom. And freedom is powerful. It allows you to live boldly. It allows you to speak confidently. It allows you to walk without fear. Because when you know truth, you are no longer controlled by lies. Today, ask yourself, where am I avoiding truth? What am I justifying that needs transformation? What belief am I holding that limits my potential? Then have the courage to face it. Because growth begins where comfort ends. And the truth you face today will become the strength you stand on tomorrow. But we're not finished yet. In the final rule, we're going to discover why never losing hope, even in your darkest season, is the key to finishing strong. Stay with me, because the final rule will ignite resilience in your spirit and leave you empowered to walk forward with confidence. Jesus' final rule is for the moments when everything feels heavy, for the nights when you can't sleep, for the days when nothing makes sense, for the seasons when you feel forgotten. This rule is simple, but it carries unstoppable power. Never lose hope, because hope is not just a feeling. Hope is fuel. Hope is strength. Hope is the quiet voice inside you that says, "This is not the end." Jesus understood suffering. He understood rejection. He understood betrayal. He understood pain. Yet through every storm, he carried hope. When he spoke about the future, he spoke with confidence. When others saw impossibility, he saw purpose. When others saw death, he saw resurrection. That's the power of hope. Hope doesn't ignore reality. It looks at reality and says, God is still greater. There will be moments in your life when things fall apart. Plans fail. People leave. Opportunities close. Dreams feel delayed. And in those moments, the easiest thing to lose is hope. Because hope requires belief when there is no visible proof. But remember this: the darkest hour comes before dawn. Seeds break open before they grow. Pressure creates diamonds, and crucifixion came before resurrection. If Jesus had given up on Friday, there would be no Sunday victory. Your Friday moment is not your final chapter. Pain is not permanent. Delay is not destiny. Failure is not final. Hope reminds you that God is still writing your story, even when the page looks empty. Maybe right now you feel stuck. Stuck in debt. Stuck in confusion. Stuck in disappointment. And a voice whispers, "It's over." But that voice is not truth, because as long as you are breathing, God is not finished. Hope is choosing to believe that better days are ahead, even when today feels overwhelming. Hope says, "I may be down, but I am not done." Jesus said, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." Take heart. That means don't let your spirit collapse. Don't let your faith shrink. Don't let temporary storms define your permanent identity. Storms pass. Seasons change. Healing comes. Breakthrough happens. But only if you don't quit. Hope keeps you moving one more step, one more prayer, one more attempt, one more day. And sometimes, that's all you need. The enemy attacks hope because hope is dangerous. A hopeful person cannot be controlled by fear. A hopeful person cannot be crushed by delay. A hopeful person keeps building, keeps believing, keeps standing. And when you stand long enough, breakthrough comes. Jesus endured the cross because of the joy set before him. He saw beyond the pain. He saw the victory. That is hope, seeing beyond the present struggle into the future promise. Your situation today is not your forever. Your struggle today is building strength for tomorrow. Your tears today are watering future testimony. Never lose hope. Not when you're tired. Not when you're misunderstood. Not when you're waiting. Because hope connects you to God's promises, and God's promises do not expire. You may bend, you may stumble, you may question, but don't quit, because quitting ends possibility. Hope keeps possibility alive. Jesus' final rule is this: hold on, even when it's hard, even when it's unclear, even when it's painful. Because the same God who carried you before will carry you again. Your story is not over. Your purpose is not canceled. Your breakthrough is not impossible. And when you look back one day, you'll realize the season that almost broke you actually built you. So lift your head, strengthen your heart, and walk forward with faith, with courage, with hope. Because when you refuse to lose hope, you refuse to lose. And that is how you finish strong. If this message spoke to your heart, don't just scroll away. Take a second, because someone out there needs to hear this too. If these 10 rules inspired you, strengthened you, or reminded you of who you are in Christ, hit that like button. Not for the algorithm, but as a sign that you choose faith over fear. Subscribe to this channel if you're ready to grow spiritually, mentally, and powerfully. Because this is more than content. This is transformation. And I want you walking this journey with us. And before you leave, comment below. Which rule impacted you the most? Was it love, forgiveness, faith, humility, hope? Your comment might encourage someone else. Remember, your growth doesn't stop here. Stay connected, stay faithful, and never stop becoming the person God created you to be.